Alright, are you guys ready for the Extreme Rules preview and prediction show? I hope so, because I've got Ashley Mann here with me tonight to talk about everything Extreme Rules. And we even opened the show with her thoughts on the Plane Ride from Hell episode from Dark Side of the Ring. You're not going to want to miss that. So let's get everything going right after this. This episode of the WWE podcast is brought to you by Stello Mints. Okay, so let me tell you why I love these mints. These are now my go-to whenever I'm feeling stressed. I work from home and I also have to work in the office. And if I have a meeting that really stresses me out, it just kind of puts me in a really bad mood and makes me anxious. All I do is pop one of these mints. It's a fast, simple way to feel more calm and clear-minded throughout your day, no matter how crazy things get. So let me give you an example. The other day I was in the office, and we started to go back to the office now that the pandemic seems to be somewhat under control, as they say. But I was back in the office, and we had to have a meeting right first thing in the morning. And right off the bat, I was assigned a massive project that I did not want any part of. It really stressed me out. I had to deliver the news to my team. And when I came back to my desk, I said to myself, this is a perfect opportunity to test out these mints. So I did. I popped two of them right in, and within minutes, I started to immediately relax. My mind started to clear. The fog lifted. It was a lifesaver. So these mints, by the way, are powered by CBD. And each tin contains 30 mints. And there's 3 different flavors you get to choose from. So peppermint, lemon, or matcha. All 3 of them are really, really good. So I would invite you guys, regardless of what your situation is. Look, my wife even tried these. She's at home with a toddler who is in crazy mode most of the day. Even she couldn't stop ranting and raving about how much these helped her throughout the day as she was trying to manage the chaos. So right now, this is exclusive to the WWE podcast listeners. You can get 15% off of these mints right now. All you have to do is go to StelloMints.com. That's StelloMints.com, STELLO mints.com, and use the promo code WWE Podcast. It'll get you 15% off of your order. It's only for a limited time, so go make yourself less stressed. Clear your mind. Trust me. I put these things through the ringer, and I can tell you firsthand that they absolutely help you calm down, clear your mind, and ultimately have a more productive and just a flat-out better day. So go check out StelloMints.com right now and put the promo code in of WWE Podcast and get yourself 15% off right now.
This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The one that everybody wants, me.
Becky Lynch is going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
Welcome to the WWE Podcast and the Extreme Rules preview and prediction show. As I said, I've got Ashley Mann here with me tonight. As always, it's seemingly for the previews for pay-per-views. And tonight's no exception. We're going to get to all of our thoughts, including Ashley's Dark Side of the Ring, Plane Ride from Hell thoughts. And yeah, we did open with that, and we went a little bit long on it, but I think it was a really great conversation discussing everything that, well, not everything, but the big things that came out of that and the repercussions and everything else. So yes, we start with that. This is Extreme Rules preview and prediction. We do get to that also. But first, thank you everybody for joining me here on the WWE Podcast. We are here 9-10 times a week. I mean, we just have a crazy amount of shows and content we put out, almost too much. But I think it's great content, great team that we have here. And they do such a good job, and I'm very appreciative of them. And speaking of appreciative, everybody on Patreon, thank you so much for supporting the show. We are going to have that VIP Discord server hot and ready to go for the pay-per-view tomorrow night. What I mean by that, for those that are listening, if you want to join us, exclusive listeners of this show, where I will be during the pay-per-view giving my in-time real thoughts, as well as everybody else that's on Patreon. Every one of our patrons gets access to the server, and we chat throughout the entire pay-per-view. What our immediate thoughts are, complaints, rants, compliments, whatever it is. And it's just a fun time. It's really a lot of fun. And I encourage you to join us over on Patreon for that opportunity. So set yourself up, get yourself ready, and we'll be doing that tomorrow night, as well as on Apple Podcasts. If you want to join us there and you don't want to Download another podcast app. You already got Apple Podcasts. Search us out. The WWE Podcast has ad-free listening on Apple Podcasts. You just click the ad-free button. It's right there on the homepage, right at the top. And you click that, and you're off to the races with ad-free content. Every single show we do ad-free. No interruptions, straight to the point. So also tomorrow night, we'll be doing a preview, or rather a review show for Extreme Rules. That'll be done immediately following the pay-per-view. So that will be done probably late tomorrow night into the early morning hours of Monday. It'll be posted and have it right ready for you when you get up in the morning. Instead of eating breakfast, instead of going to the bathroom, brushing your teeth in the morning, the first thing you're going to do is roll over in bed. And you're going to do this, right? You're going to grab your smartphone and you're going to look and say, oh, and you're just, the first thing you see is that brand new show from the WWE Podcast, right? I know that's how many of you start your mornings. Forget Folgers, right? We are how you get your day started. Of course, I know that many of you need your coffee first. So anyway, let's get to the preview and prediction show. Speaking of getting straight to the point with Ashley and myself, everybody, as always, thanks for listening. I'll talk to you next time. All right, here we go. Yet another WWE pay-per-view. They seem to be just flying by here, guys. I don't know what it is. I mean, it's been 5 weeks since the last one, SummerSlam, and it's here we are. Boom. Extreme Rules tomorrow night taking place, and I've got Ashley Mann here. Who else would be here for a preview and prediction show to talk about everything with the pay-per-view? We'll go through our thoughts, our predictions on who could be there, who could show up, any big returns, that kind of thing. And then, and of course, anything else that comes to mind, and maybe some odds and ends. But first, I want to ask, Ashley, how you doing? I know you recently made a big switch in your livelihood a little further south in the United States, so I hope all is well.
I did just about 10 hours south, nothing crazy. But yes, I'm officially in Orlando now for about a little close to a month now almost. And yeah, it's quite different in the best way possible. Like I mentioned, I miss a few handful of people, but man, I'm so loving the decision that I made right now. I'm just so thankful to let everything work out. And yeah, and it's crazy because I meant to mention this earlier, but these shows that we have are just the opportunity for just more events in the Florida area wrestling wise. I'm excited about that because for instance, I know this is unrelated, but AEW is coming and they're going to be in Miami and in Florida on the 16th, I believe they'll be in Miami, and then the 23rd they'll be in Orlando. So being right here, it just kind of works out. It's just, you're just you're reminded you're kind of in a wrestling hub down here. So it's pretty cool.
That is awesome. Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up too, because I know that you and Mimi did a great job on the AEW Grand Slam show, which I did catch pieces of. If you guys haven't seen it and you're a wrestling fan, for God's sakes, go watch the pay-per-view, especially Daniel Bryan and Kenny Omega. I mean that speaks for itself. So go check that out. And yeah, certainly you have a great place to be if you're a wrestling fan with AEW or even WWE, which has their training performance center, their Capital Wrestling Center, whatever they're calling it now, right in Orlando. But one thing that you probably shouldn't do if you're down there is take a flight with Ric Flair, right? I mean, taking a flight with Ric Flair or Scott Hall, not advised. And that being said, Ashley, I got to ask you, the Dark Side of the Ring episode, and I don't want to spend a ton of time on it, but I do want to ask your opinion on it. And that is, what did you think about the plane ride from hell episode of Dark Side of the Ring?
Yeah, so surprisingly, I was actually one of the fans who I had heard of the plane ride from hell, the name itself, and vaguely a little bit of the people who are actually on it, but I never heard the full story. I don't know how, I just never heard it or avoided it for this long. But yeah, so when I watched Dark Side of the Ring, that was my first time actually hearing the full story, or what I don't know if you've seen it afterwards, but there's some people who have mentioned that they left certain things out or didn't mention full stories about certain people. So, at least all the information that they presented, that was the first time I had heard the bulk of it. So it's just one of those things, where do you even start really? The Ric Flair thing, and with people saying that wasn't really out of the norm, and that's pretty much an every night occurrence, or that behavior is that happens more time than not. It's just kind of sad. you know, like I don't know how you can just like continue to like hang out with someone who's doing behavior like that and not, first of all, just be uncomfortable with it or just not say anything for like multiple times. It's just, I don't know. People say it's a different era and things like that and a different culture. And I guess maybe so, but like it still doesn't excuse it. Right. And regardless on my opinion, of course, regardless on if you feel like something happened or didn't happen, regardless on if you were either drunk or intoxicated or whatever the situation was. And clearly they said they went through 3 carts, I think it was, of alcohol. And the lady said they've never even really gone through one before. So, I mean, come on. And God knows what else was on there. So whether you think something happened or not, I just feel like if you, especially seeing the raw footage from the flight attendant, I'm blanking on her name right now and I apologize, but to see how much it affected her and still to this day, and it was 20 years later, almost 20 years later, I don't know, like it's just unexcusable to at least just go out there and still like not show sympathy. And then of course the whole Tommy Dreamer thing was just a whole nother situation. And I'm kind of curious to hear your thoughts on the whole Tommy Dreamer part really quick. Just because I think, and I know they said too that, you know, that I've read that parts of what he had said was kind of taken out and like the full context wasn't there. So I don't know, but regardless, the words that were spoken were still hurtful and still downplayed a traumatic event.
It was, yeah. I mean, I did just a 20-minute rant about this, and here's the thing about Dark Side of the Ring. People are saying that it's hurting the business, this and that. I will say the Dark Side of the Ring, while they do focus on the negative, everything else about wrestling promotions on TV is all positive. It's all self-promotion. So I think it's good to see a full picture of what goes on in the wrestling business. I don't dislike Dark Side of the Ring. I don't think they have an agenda that is trying to take down the business. They're just trying to show people another side of it that is often ignored or swept under the rug. And you don't have people at gunpoint being told to do the interview. You have volunteers coming in. You have Jim Ross. You had Tommy Dreamer. You have Rob Van Dam. You know, you had guys that were there, and Terry Runnels, of course, who was there, and she had a whole incident with Brock Lesnar many times, and that was eye-opening. I didn't know that about Brock.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. That was crazy.
And then that's often being glossed over because of Ric Flair and Tommy Dreamer really headlining this whole thing. But yeah, Terry Runnels, and I believe her. You know, the thing is too, you got to be careful because, and I'm not saying I don't believe Terry. I'm not saying I don't believe the flight attendant. I'm trying to find her name too, and I cannot remember. Is it Heidi Doyle? Heidi Doyle, it might be.
Possibly. That sounds right.
Yeah, take a look at what the name is. And the name escapes me as well, but I think it's Heidi. So let's go with that. I will say you got to be careful about when people just make accusations that they know if they make that accusation, it could take that person
Heidi
down.
Doyle.
Like,
sorry.
Okay, good. So I believe her, and I do believe Terry Runnels, and what they did was disgusting. But you need to always make sure that whenever you hear an accusation, you don't automatically assume they're guilty, because a lot of times people will just make accusations, men and women, and they know that just power of the words, people will assume they're guilty, their life is ruined without any evidence. In this case, there was many eyewitnesses on the plane. There's no question about this. And I think that Ric Flair, he's been accused of living his gimmick. I mean, he was the Nature Boy. Like, even beyond the camera, when the cameras were off, he was still that guy. And for him to do what he did, now he didn't rape her. We know that. But I mean, it's sexual assault. I mean, there's no other way around it. And it's just overlooked because he's a star of his caliber. It's excusable. Of course it's not. And the sad thing is that this probably went on many, many, many other times. And it probably happened to many other women with many other men that we'll never hear the stories about. And I guarantee you still today it's happening. I can guarantee you in every major sport across the world, it is still happening today, where men, and you know, even so, sometimes women, it's not all men, probably a vast majority of it is, but I would say that it's still happening today, and it's still because people at that level are held or feel like they're at a higher standard. They're above the law. And I don't care if it was, oh, well, that's just how it was back then. Well, that's not what the law says, right? Like, the law was still the law back then, and it's just unfortunate. And I feel really bad for Heidi and Tommy Dreamer. I'll just say this about Tommy. His comments they're inexcusable. I mean, there's just nothing you could say that he was victim blaming Heidi for saying, oh, it was just a joke. I mean, sexual assault is not a joke. I mean, you don't victim blame somebody for, oh, well, she was asking for it. It was just a joke. He's taken out his, his private area and just kind of like exposing himself and grabbed her hand. I believe he even said, or she said, he took her hand and put it on his. Yeah. So, I mean, that's sexual assault. I mean, period. And so, I don't know. I think that Tommy Dreamer's comments were just absolutely ill-advised. Jim Ross, I do blame a little bit too. I know Vince told him, hey, probably don't do anything to Rick. And, Jim Ross, you could see him tearing up during the interview, if anybody caught that, saying that, he got a pass because he was a made man. That's a terrible excuse. Terrible. So, I mean, I love Jim Ross, but everyone involved here from the top down, it's really eye-opening and kind of disgusting, honestly. So,
well, yeah, and really quick, and it shows you that, like you had mentioned earlier, it is still happening because of just recently. What was it, last year and a half ago, when the whole, what was it, the speaking out movement or the speak out movement in the whole wrestling world started, yes. And a whole bunch of different wrestlers were accused then of various things. So it's obviously still happening, and that's what's so sad, and wrestling's not, this wrestling isn't the only sport or a form of entertainment that this happens in, obviously, because this happens in every form of media, sadly, but it's just, with wrestling, it's kind of different because you grow a bond with these people, right? And of course, like, you don't actually know them, but like, it's a weird love, right? Like that you have for their characters, and in a way you feel like you know them. So when stories like this come out, it's kind of like, you're disappointed, and for especially something like this that happened so long ago. And for me, like, I kind of felt foolish just with how much, like, I've loved wrestling personally, like I've done, and like I'm obviously one of those fans that like spends too much time probably sometimes just like reading and just watching stuff from all eras. So the fact that I personally didn't know this, and it was just kind of like, wow, like, what else don't I know? And it's like you're kind of scared to know, right?
But do you want to know? I mean,
exactly. And I think the whole thing with Tommy Dreamer too that really bothered me was when he had referenced her taking the payout, right, or something. I forget his exact quote, but like, yes. if it really happened or something like that, like, she shouldn't have taken the payout. She should have gone after him.
Yep.
And like, I mean, I thank God, like, I'm not speaking from someone who's been in that situation, but like, she flat out said there, and I'm probably almost positive Tommy didn't see or know what she was going to say prior to him making his comments, because I don't know like the order of how they film or how that works out, or if they are aware of like other interviews that are going on. So you kind of have to give him, I don't know. I don't want to say give him a little leeway, but because what he said was insensitive and so many things, right? But it's not that simple. Like, she had even mentioned there, like, it almost destroyed her family. Like, her husband pretty much like forced her to take the settlement just so like their family wasn't embarrassed and everything. And like, just imagine being this poor lady, right? Just going through like this traumatic event. Like, and she doesn't know who Ric Flair is. Like, she has no idea who these wrestlers are. Like, wrestlers, like, to us, they're like, like gods on earth. But like, to your average person, like, they're probably not going to recognize someone like that. You know what I mean? So it's not like it's like a movie star, as much as I hate to say it, like, wrestlers are just like on a different level. So your average person isn't going to know everyone. So I don't know. I just think that it was just, to say the least, it was just wrong. And he probably should have avoided even filming for this episode, because he wasn't even on the plane, right? He wasn't even on the ride itself, the plane ride itself.
Yeah, no.
Tommy Dreamer. So like, I don't even know why he was there, like, doing it in the interview, because he knows the people involved. I don't know. It was just kind of odd.
Yeah, that was a really bad judgment call, especially in today's culture and society about, bringing awareness to sexual assault victims and speak up and speak out and all that stuff. Which, I mean, I fully support all that. You should, just because you're ashamed of maybe what happened doesn't mean you shouldn't speak out, because that's obviously how you start the healing process and all that. But your comment about the trial and how Tommy Dreamer said, if she really thought he was this sexual predator, why didn't she go to full trial? All that. It's like, it's partly exactly what you said. And it's that she didn't want to drag her family through this mess of maybe years potentially of litigation, thousands of dollars.
I'm sorry, that stuff doesn't just come and go within a month, right? It's not like you can just bring charges, say, okay, yeah, I'm gonna go to court next week, I want it to be done. Like, that could take months, if not years, because you're depending on your level of, the level of importance. And obviously I don't know how things are divvied out there, but stuff like that doesn't just happen over a month. You know what I mean? So it's just, that's just another reason why it's insensitive.
That's exactly. He wasn't thinking. I know what the logic was there. Like, well, if he really thought he was guilty. Like, why didn't she prosecute this to the fullest extent of the law? It's very short term thinking. He didn't really think through that comment. Like, well, yeah, exactly. Maybe it wouldn't have been the best for her life to relive this day after day and get things ready for court and tell her story over and over, relive it in her mind over and over, drag her family through the mud, and ultimately spend thousands of dollars maybe to lose the case. I mean, maybe she just ends up in mass amounts of debt over this for nothing. So I actually agree with what her decision was, because as much as you would love to have seen it and actually, okay, great, the criminal gets charged, and Ric Flair did conduct a criminal act. That's fact. And he should have gone to jail. I mean, there's no other way around it. But did she want to take that risk and all that time, invest emotionally, monetarily, drag her family? No, ultimately to maybe lose. So good for her for taking the money and doing probably the right thing for her family. And yes, it was just like, here, take the money and shut up and don't talk about it. Essentially like a bribe, a gag order from WWE. Here's your payout and shut up. And I'm sure they've done that over the years. But I understand that seems like a lesser of an option, but for her mental health, her sanity, I don't blame her. I really don't blame her for that. The other two things I'll say, and then I'll toss it to you for closing comments. I feel like we're at trial here. Is the H-bomb? I think they referred it to as on the plane, which is really just a fancy word for roofies. I mean, I think that's what they meant, and I don't know who had them, but Scott Hall thinks that maybe it was Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig, who actually, as far as Scott Hall is concerned, dropped it in his drink, because Scott Hall had said before that, look, he's drank and had a lot of drugs in his life, and he's never been out like that. So and they would do it on each other as a gag. But it was also mentioned, and I don't know who said it, that they did do this on the women. Maybe it was Jim Ross or somebody, that they did do this on the women in different cities and then have their way with them. I'm like, so basically you're admitting, without saying who or what or when.
I think, was that RVD? Was that what?
Yes, maybe it was RVD, and said that they roofied women throughout all these cities and had their way with them, essentially raped them. I mean, like, that's let's get down to the brass tacks. That's exactly what he said. That was a little bit, when he said that, I'm like, damn, like that's, I mean, he didn't give names or anything, nor would I expect him to, but, did you catch that too?
Yeah. And that was what was disturbing as well, because it makes you think, in like the time frame, especially when it happened, like that was like prime time for me personally as a fan, like especially like age wise, like I was really getting into it. So like, for instance, like someone had mentioned, like recently in the interview the Undertaker did, like he had mentioned that, like he wishes, or like the locker room nowadays isn't what it used to be like back in the day. And that kind of stood out, because like if this is what it was really like, then it's like it just kind of takes you back to kind of being disgusted, right? Because it's like you're sitting here cheering these people on, and like they could be doing God knows
giving them
what the second
tons of your money for merchandise,
I'm
tickets,
sitting there
pay-per-views.
wearing your T-shirt, like cheering my head off for you, and then 2 hours later you're drugging someone in the hotel room. Like what?
Yep.
And it's like, again, like I, of course, obviously wasn't there, so we don't really know the truth. But if it's like, if some people make comments like this, it's not, they're not making it out of nowhere, right? Like,
No.
That's something pretty bold to just fabricate. So you wouldn't do that if it's not true. And especially I'm pretty sure that was RVD who had mentioned something like that. It's especially someone like him who doesn't really say and like do stuff like this. He's not out there like looking for clout or anything like that. So it's not, I don't know, it's not something like that, but it's disgusting,
Yeah,
dude. It is.
It is. I
don't know.
And the last thing, and I keep saying the last thing, but this is that the fact that they were drunk or, oh, we were just out of our minds, or, I mean, that's such an elementary, excuse. It's not even an excuse, because you put yourself in that position. I made this point on the show a couple of, or last week when this whole thing came up. I said, so if you go out and you get hammered and you're coming from home from a bar and, you just beat the crap out of somebody, and then they press charges and the cop comes over and he's like, what happened here? And, the guy's like, oh, he beat me up. And you say to the cop, well, I was drunk. The cop's not going to say, oh, well, you're okay. Head on home. Right. Like, right. Just because you're drunk doesn't do anything for you. In fact, it may make it worse. Public intoxication is a charge. Of course, DUI, all that kind of thing. So being drunk is zero excuse. Yeah, you may not remember it. Like that's I believe you. You probably may not remember some things because of how drunk or out of your mind you are. I mean, I've been many times in my previous life in my early 20s or mid 20s, like several nights are very, very foggy, but I never did anything like this. I mean, there's no excuse for it at all. So I'll just say that. So.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say here too about it is, with the whole Scott Hall thing, like that was probably, I don't want to say most disturbing, but right up there to me. Like he attempted to lick her, like, and it's, and I don't know if he actually did. I may have missed that part,
yes.
But like if he, let's say he just got on the plane and intended to drink, right? No drugs, no nothing like that, and let's say his drink was H-bombed, okay? Mm-hmm. Yes, I do feel for him in that respect, but if that's the case, then why wouldn't you be pissed off? Why wouldn't you, why is that okay? Like, why is that? Maybe I'm just off and that's just not my idea of a good time, but if I can't trust the people I'm with to not, I mean, being in a bar and leaving your drink unattended is one thing, right? But if you're with your friends and the people that you pretty much live with, right? Yeah. They're with these people more than they're at home. You should be able to trust yourself on a plane with a certain amount of people. So it's just, if that truly is the case and he was drugged, and it sounded like it was because they had to, push him in the wheelchair out of there, then, you would think that he would be pissed, right? Like, why aren't you more mad at the fact that, because then someone else was taking advantage of him essentially by drugging, it's just that, yeah.
That whole thing of like, oh, well, that's kind of the boys, that's the rib, that's like that kind of stuff. Like, that's not funny. Like, that's not like hee ha ha. Like, you can actually kill somebody doing this.
Yeah.
Like, this is not that. I mean, I don't know. I would never have survived in that culture. Like, I'm not a big, like, do something to get somebody pissed and then, oh, it's funny to everybody else stuff. That's not, I mean, that is like the opposite of the culture I would survive in. Like, I would never have made it if I was in there, but it's just, I can't stand that crap of like, do something, I'll steal somebody's bags and, toss it off the tarmac or something. Ha 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 ha. And then they get to the place, they don't have their bag. Like, that kind of crap. I don't know. I'm not a big proponent of that. But anyway, yeah. H-bomb, roofies, whatever you want to call it, that, and having Scott Hall try to lick her face and telling her what he's going to do to her and all that kind of stuff. I mean, she must, honestly, it's just, it's so gross. It's so gross.
Now, and was Vince actually on the plane?
Yep.
Because he was on the plane the entire, and that's what, because of like, I had heard like conflicting things about that too. Like, some people say it was, some people say he wasn't. Like, how is all of that happening? And I'm sorry, I know I said it was going to be over, but like, this is the last thing for sure. How is all that happening literally right behind you, right? Because if you're in first class, you're in the front of the plane. If all that's happening behind you, how do you not go back there? Like, and how do you just, I don't know, like, and I don't want to say, because JR was in a tough spot. Like, I do not envy him at all, but like, if you get back there and you realize all of this stuff is happening, like, why wouldn't you go up to Vince and be like, you need to come back here? Like, that's, it's his company, right? The buck stock was him. So it's like, if you can't handle it yourself, like that, Vince is right there. It's not, I don't know. Like, if he truly was on the plane, then that's just kind of like, that's just very weird to me. And that kind of makes me even more uncomfortable.
Makes you wonder if he was, I don't want to say partaking, but just turning a blind eye, going, it's the boys, right? It's just the boys, like, and just pretending like, plugging his ears, saying la 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 la. What I don't know is what I don't know. Like, just not wanting to know, so it's not on his conscience, and I'm out of it.
And to that extent, though, it's just like, wow, like, okay.
Yeah. Oh God. All right. Well, anybody who hasn't seen this, I mean, go watch if you want to. Viewer, be warned. It will make you change the way you look at certain individuals and the way that the wrestling business was back in the early 2000s. Nearly 20 years ago this happened. So quite an interesting episode. I think by far probably their highest rated. It got the most, at least to my knowledge, the most social media buzz about it. So go watch it if you dare. But if you want your superstars to be ruined, as they always say, and Rob Van Dam says, you never want to meet your heroes in real life. And sometimes you don't in this case. So, all right, let's get to the Extreme Rules pay-per-view here, as it is coming to us tomorrow night live. I don't know if it's still a pay-per-view. I think you can still actually buy pay-per-views. I think that's actually a thing. So I'll still say live on pay-per-view.
Yeah. Which is insane.
Yeah.
Still like $45. Like,
is it really? They're still selling them that? Oh my God.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
Who are these people?
Like, I know Sling. I'm pretty sure Sling is like either 45 or 49 because I have Sling myself, and I saw that because there's like an ad. I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
Oh my God. Well, I can't say anything. I just spent $1,200 on an iPhone 13. I don't need, but I'm just that guy. Yeah. No, I do it. I upgrade every year just because I feel they sell me. Their damn keynotes they're magicians. So.
Well, see, my phone is actually dying. It's like on its last day, and like I get weird messages, like I don't get messages, like it doesn't really charge. So like I actually needed a phone. I've just been holding out. Not that this is important, but I was supposed to get it on Friday, and the delivery kept getting delayed. So haven't actually got it yet, but it's on its way.
Oh.
Did you get the Pro or the Pro Max?
Oh, of course I got the Pro Max. I mean, I upgrade every year. Like, I'm the guy that's sitting there and everyone's like, well, so what's different this year? Why do you need a new phone? Like, they're trying to insert logic where logic is not going to exist, right? Like, it's just like, of course I didn't need a new phone. I mean, but my excuse is, well, I trade the other one in, so it's only $800 and I spent $1,200, so I'm really not spending too much for it every year. So it's whatever. So I hear it all the time. It's like trying to convince me to like seafood. It's not going to happen. It's just it's just not possible. So all right, let's get into the card here and start with this match that I'm really not sure if they're going to make the actual pay-per-view itself. I could see it being actually a pre-show match, and that is Liv Morgan versus Carmela for really just pride. There's nothing really on the line here other than just rivalry, I guess. But the one thing about this is that's good, I think, is Liv Morgan gets a singles match. And they mentioned on Smackdown that Liv Morgan will have her second ever singles match on the pay-per-view. That's really the selling point for this match, which is, So, I mean, I'm fine with this because while it's random and it doesn't make sense really for it to be a pay-per-view match, and it's not really particularly an intense feud, I think that this is good exposure for Liv Morgan because I think the fans are behind Liv to get to that next level. We saw it at Money in the Bank this past year. She was the sentimental favorite. People have been waiting for WWE to do something with her. So there's at least that where they are giving her a match, and I think she's going to win here on a pay-per-view. So that's one thing. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. I'm going with Liv Morgan as well. And I think she kind of wins here to kind of set up to maybe cement this win as like a foundation win and then kind of maybe build a couple more going forward to be the next challenger for the championship, just because the talent pool itself is looking kind of skim. And depending, regardless of which direction the title match actually goes later on, they're going to need more challengers coming up, even though the draft is coming up, which, is a whole other story. But yeah, I think what they're doing here is trying to just set up Liv to just gain a little bit of momentum that they love to push, just to maybe have her as a viable contender for a championship. Whether she's going to actually win it or not, the title is a whole other thing, but at least a challenge for it.
Yeah, that unfortunately is probably, for Liv Morgan fans, the highest we could hope for at this time. I don't see any indications right now that they're going to put her in a position to win the championship, even in the next, 5-6 months. Maybe if they do, great, and maybe the fans organically get behind her. I think that's going to be the biggest key for Liv Morgan is how do the fans respond to her over the next few months? If it's just kind of a mild mild positive reaction that she's been getting, then WWE's going to say, okay, well, we can build her to a challenger, but she's probably not going to win. If the fans really get behind her and you start to see an organic movement for her, and start seeing signs of like hashtag give Liv a chance or something like that, and that starts trending, then WWE may pay more attention and make her more than just a challenger. But at this time, I'm going to, and you are too, kind of going to go the conservative road and say, yes, this is a build to a challenger, not necessarily a victory. So, all right, let's get to the next match here. That is the Smackdown Tag Team Championship match. The Usos versus the Street Profits. Ashley, take it away.
Yeah, I actually was kind of torn a little bit just because the Street Profits have been getting a lot of attention lately, but I think they're going to stick with the Usos right now. I think they're still going strong with that whole bloodline story in and of itself, so I don't think it's time to take the titles away from them right now. I don't think they're going to do that until the whole bloodline itself is starting to crack, so I'm going to stick with the Usos here, but I think this is going to be a really solid match, though.
Yes, I'm with you. And while it is not a certainty that the Usos are going to retain here, I think it's all but a foregone conclusion that the Usos retain, and they should. Honestly, they should. I don't hate the Street Profits. To me, they're more tolerable, more palatable than the New Day are. They're like a level up from the New Day for me. And while they both are going to have an amazing, I think that this could be the match of the night. I mean, there's a chance of this being the match of the night just because of how good both of these individuals are, or both of these teams are. And I think ultimately, the Usos do retain because the bloodline is not ready, nor do I think it's anywhere close to ready to cracking and disintegrating. I think we've got a long way to go before that happens. Maybe WrestleMania could be the time where things start to break down, and we'll have to see if The Rock comes back, as he's rumored to, in November. I don't know if that's true. Maybe they're going to wait till the Royal Rumble. Maybe they're going to wait till WrestleMania. I don't know. But honestly, the Usos and the Street Profits, you're here for the quality of the match. You're not necessarily here to see, the Street Profits could get the championships. You're here to see how great of a match can they put on, and that's fine. I think you're going to get a very, very good match, a B+ A- match. And, the Usos retain the championships, as they should. All right, here we go. Damien Priest versus Sheamus versus Jeff Hardy. I didn't know that. When did that happen? For the United States Championship. Okay, first of all, did I miss something about Jeff Hardy being inserted in this championship match? How did that happen?
I'm pretty sure it was this past week that he was just inserted. I didn't catch all of Raw, but I'm pretty sure it was this past week. And yeah, it kind of, to a lesser extent, feels like one of those Daniel Bryan things. I'm kind of afraid Jeff is just in there to kind of take the pinfall here. But yeah, did you want to go first with your prediction, or should I
go ahead. You're
okay,
going,
I didn't mean to just take over there, but
go ahead.
Yeah. So some people are just completely down on Jeff winning, which I unfortunately am too. It's just, and it's sad, because Jeff could still be. It's weird because and maybe it's just me being biased because he was one of my all-time favorites. I feel like Jeff is just one of those guys where he could be in a match like this and let's say take the pinfall, or next week he could possibly challenge to be for the title, for the heavyweight championship. So I just wish that they would kind of treat him a little bit better than they do. But at this point, it's kind of like beating a dead horse. But yeah, I'm going with Damien Priest retaining here. But I think this is going to be a really good match, and I'm surprised that there was no type of stipulation for this match either. Which, it's Extreme Rules. You would think there'd be something for these matches, but I guess not.
I'm glad that on the Extreme Rules pay-per-view, like sometimes they do on TLC, they're not doing a chairs match, a tables match, a ladders match, and then a TLC match. To me, that's overkill, and I'm glad that while it is named Extreme Rules, that every match on the card is not just no rules. That's good, but at the same time, this is no rules because it's a triple threat by default. Which still makes no sense that every triple threat is no DQ. Nobody can logically explain why. It just is, and you're not supposed to question it. But I think your fear is going to be realized, Ashley, because I think Jeff Hardy is exactly here to do that. Protect Sheamus and protect Damien Priest by having Damien Priest and pin Jeff Hardy, probably off a bro kick, or maybe Sheamus is not in the equation, whatever the case may be. He's out on the outside, and Damien Priest ends up pinning Jeff Hardy to retain the championship. I think they have high hopes for Damien Priest. They have been, they opened Raw with him a few weeks ago. He's been in several different segments. He speaks well. He's got a good presence. I'm a Damien Priest fan right now, and I think that taking the belt off him would make no sense at all. Jeff Hardy is the guy in WWE right now that is the kind of chameleon. He will be anything at any time that they need. Like if they need somebody, there's not enough people in the single file line to go chase the 24/7 title. Jeff is just going to raise his hand and say, I'm here. Right. So if they need somebody to do commentary, if they need somebody to, like Jeff Hardy could do anything. He's at that stage in his career where he knows probably too, they have nothing for him. That they know, like they don't have a true defined plan. He's just there as a legacy star to add star power to any matchup or any segment that he's in. And unfortunately, that's where he's at in his career, and he's here to take the pinfall. Sorry to say anybody that thinks Jeff Hardy has any chance here. It's zero chance. So enjoy your Swanton Bomb. Enjoy the twist of fate. Enjoy his makeup with his eyes, whatever he does there. Enjoy the legacy intro, because that's probably the most enjoyment you're going to get out of Jeff tomorrow night, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I'm not going to continue on it because I really could. But yeah, it's just sad. But I still think it would be a solid match. And Sheamus, man, he had another bloody nose from this past week. He's just, that guy can't catch a break.
He's like Charlotte. Like Charlotte constantly. Yeah. I don't know. He's maybe taking tips from her. I don't know what it is, but I agree. Yeah, no, and I'm a Sheamus fan, but I don't think Sheamus gains it back here. But no. All right. Here's an interesting one. Charlotte Flair versus Alexa Bliss for the Raw Women's Championship. I'll let you take this one again first, too.
Yeah, so this one I'm kind of really torn about, and more torn than I expected, really, when I actually put some thought into it. And I'm not mad. I kind of dig where they're going with this. I feared the worst, right, whenever Charlotte and Alexa were going to meet up. So to see how it's actually playing out, especially their promo from this past week, I was personally a really big fan of. I don't know. I part of me thinks that they want to put it, or they would put it on Alexa just because it's something kind of new, right? And they seem to be really happy with her. But then again, Alexa really doesn't wrestle that much either. So with the Raw women's division, especially, like the champion has kind of been like the workhorse in the sense. So I don't know if you put it on Alexa, how often she's actually going to wrestle, and that could become a problem. And of course, I guess everything may not even matter because they're going to have the draft. What is that, next week? Or is it 2 weeks from now? The draft
next
itself?
Week. October
next
1st.
Week, yeah. Okay. Yeah, so I guess it doesn't even really matter. She could win here, but I don't, because what I think may happen later on, I'm going to stick with Charlotte winning here, and then just Alexa kind of fading back to just feuding with whomever.
I think you're going to see Alexa grab the belt here. And I'm not doing this just to be controversial or to go against you. I really do believe Alexa Bliss will be champion. While I was on your train for a long time over the last several weeks, thinking that, why would they do this to Alexa now? She's not as hot as she once was. At one point, she was the hottest woman that WWE had. I mean, she was just, people are so enthralled with her. And yes, she was a spinoff of The Fiend and all that. But I think that they unfortunately did a lot of damage with her sitting in her playground for weeks and weeks and months and months and months and months, not getting her own program. And I think they did damage there. The fans kind of got tired of her magic tricks, and Lily with Shayna Baszler was really the peak of the nonsense. Yeah. That fans were like, okay, screw this, we're out, right? And Alexa Bliss, to her credit and creative's credit, have started to bring the fans back in. And if you're listening to the reaction every week now, I think that it's starting to be a lot more positive for Alexa Bliss, which is what they're going for. They're not doing the magic tricks, which honestly they can't do a whole lot of because they're not in the Thunderdome anyway. They can't just pull the rug out from under you and have that ability. Real people are there. But having Lily there, fine. I've kind of just given up on the doll. I don't love it. I don't hate it. She's just there. Fine. It's part of her gimmick. And I think Charlotte and Lexi, as Charlotte calls her, have...
Which I like, by the way.
Yeah, I do too. I really did like that. it's close enough to Alexa where you're not like, what are you know, it's not like you're trying to break the fourth wall. It's close enough for me. It's like fine, because obviously her real name is Lexi. It's fine. So I like the interaction with these two on Monday Night Raw, where they were really coming at each other. And the part where Alexa Bliss was talking about Charlotte, taking the last name, or not taking the last name, but ripping off a gimmick, and having Charlotte saying to Alexa, you want to talk about, ripping off or ripping off a gimmick, something like along those lines, referring to Bray Wyatt. That was really good. And they had a real segment. That was the first time I feel like Alexa Bliss was talking real and not in character. That was a neat little segment there, and she's all in. I'm really enjoying this feud way more than I thought I would. I think Alexa Bliss grabs the title belt, and really two reasons. Number one, every other match on the card looks like a retention, and it looks like a very, very solid case for a retention. This one does too, because you're thinking Charlotte just won it back again after losing it again, and you're thinking they don't want to play hot potato. But this is the one match, if you're going to change a championship, is probably the one you do. While it's not a slam dunk, it's the one you can make the biggest case for, I think. And so I think Alexa Bliss grabs the belt for that, number one. Number two, the draft, the way that it's structured and has been structured in the past, champions usually are not eligible for the draft, because you can't take the Raw Women's Championship and bring it to Raw, right? Or did they? No, they switched the tag team titles last year, didn't they?
Yeah, they just handed them over.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there goes that. My logic is one dimensional. It's that the one match that looks like it could be the one to logically have Alexa Bliss grab the belt, and I think fans would be interested to see what the hell does a Raw Women's Champion of Alexa Bliss look like. So I don't know how she wins. I would think it's got to be from either Charlotte, stepping on her own toes or something, because Alexa Bliss, I don't think would outright beat Charlotte Flair, at least, but she's the babyface. I don't know. Maybe I'm making my case too complicated, but Alexa Bliss wins in my mind.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. That's what I was saying. Like, I was actually really torn with this one too, because like I completely agree with you. Like, I could see her winning, and I'd kind of be cool with it. Like I said, like I've really enjoyed the route that they've gone with her character, and like you said, kudos to her and the team for how they tweaked it and just kind of gone in a different direction, but still kind of maintaining the whole vibe of the character itself. But I think, and I'll kind of get more into it later on when we talk about the Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair match. I think for me personally, I'd have Flair retaining just for like other reasons after the draft. But I could like I mentioned, I could totally see Alexa winning here too.
Yeah, well, don't let me skew your decision. We all know what happens when that happens. So, nope, you are, by God, you are sticking with Charlotte.
I'm sticking with her.
Okay, all right, I'm sticking with Alexa Bliss. So we'll have to see there. Honestly, I wouldn't hate either decision. I'm fine with either one.
So. And who would have thought? Like I'm pretty sure. Like I probably complained to you about the whole Alexa Bliss and Charlotte direction. Like I didn't want to see it. Like Charlotte's kind of like. Not necessarily above it, but just like you don't see Charlotte dealing with stuff like that. So like that's why I didn't really account for Alexa winning the Money in the Bank briefcase, just because Charlotte's Charlotte, but what they've done with this is really, really well done. So kudos to both of them for that matter.
Yeah, no, and that line that Alexa said on Raw about who is Charlotte without the championship? What's your identity? Like, who are? And that's true, because every time you see Charlotte, she's got a championship. And Charlotte's like, well, you're not going to find out because I don't lose, right? Like, I mean, it was really well done. So, all right, well then we're going to get to that SmackDown Women's Championship match now. We're going to talk about Bianca Belair versus Becky Lynch, and I'll go first on this one. This one looks like a slam dunk to me. I think it looks like a slam dunk to most people, and only because Becky Lynch just won it. If this was several months down the line at a bigger stage, I think most people would probably be like, oh, well, it's time for Bianca to grab it back. But let's just get to it. I think Becky Lynch retains. I know it's a boring pick. I know it's a predictable pick. I know a lot of people are picking her, but I think Becky Lynch does retain. And for the fact that they're right now they're in the transition of making Becky Lynch a heel, where in the first try at making her a heel actually made her the hottest babyface that WWE had seen in a decade, and had her main event WrestleMania with Ronda Rousey and Charlotte. And that wasn't supposed to happen for Becky. So I think this time around, they're taking the more thought out road. They're taking the slower road to Becky Lynch doing a full heel turn. Well, I mean, I'm not a big fan of it. I've gone on rants about why I think it's a bad idea right now to make Becky Lynch a heel, but they're here. So they're in the transition of that. And with a champion as a heel, you want to keep that momentum going because you're the heel. And having her lose the belt here, I think, would take some of that steam away from her progress, and they have made progress for Becky Lynch transitioning fully into a hated heel. Right now, she's getting the mixed reaction. They even noted that on Smackdown. So to keep it going, you want to keep Becky Lynch champion. She's got to cheat to win, and I think she does cheat to win. A rake to the eyes, a foreign object. Maybe she goes William Regal and uses the brass knucks. I don't know, but I think that there's going to be some kind of hocus pocus in terms of cheating to win here. And that's, to me, how this is going to go out. This is going to be a hell of a match. I'm looking forward to their actual, what I thought was going to be their SummerSlam match happening here, where it's not some kind of 26-second special, but rather the 15 to 20-minute classic it could be. There's also a chance of Sasha Banks coming back and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's outside. I'm not going to go there. I think this is a straight-up Becky Lynch cheats to win. Maybe it's the legs on the ropes, something like that. But that's my thought.
Yeah, I agree with you as well here. And like I mentioned with the previous match, I think I'm going with Becky as well. But I think what may end up happening after this week and in the draft itself, I can definitely see Bianca going to Raw and facing off with Charlotte Flair and kind of like having that feud go on for a little while and play out through Survivor Series and maybe to the Rumble, depending on how long he can drag it out. But and of course, like a few other people will switch over too, but I just kind of think that they're going to do that because like you said, I can see Sasha Banks coming back soon, and then we still have Bayley who's going to come back also. And normally when there's, I say that as I was about to say that, I was about to say normally when someone returns, they stick with the same brand that they left, but we just saw Becky go from Raw to SmackDown, so
and Riddick
who
Moss.
knows?
I'm pretty sure Riddick Moss was
yeah. Yeah, so I guess that really doesn't matter either, but normally when you return from injury, you stick with the same brand that you were on when you left, right? So that would mean that Bayley would return to SmackDown. So that's why I was saying, like, maybe you could heat up Liv Morgan to have her kind of be, I don't want to say a placeholder, but kind of have her be like your Finn Balor in a respect, like kind of buy some time until like the star comes back being a Bayley. Because I just see when Bayley comes back that people are going to cheer her. Just even if she doesn't change her character much, I can just see her just being so over with the fans because she completely missed out on just the reaction of the fans from, the return of everyone. So it's so sad, but I could kind of see that route going for SmackDown unless they make, major changes. But yeah, I see Becky retaining here, and I hope Bianca would move over to Raw just so she can still be in the spotlight and be in the title picture, but not going against Becky again.
Yeah,
and then they could go back to it in the future. Sorry.
No, go ahead. What'd you say?
No, yeah, I was just gonna say, and then they can go back to Becky and Bianca in the future, like if they needed it for like even like a WrestleMania, like you could have like Bianca gets screwed at like the Royal Rumble and like have Becky still be the champion and just kind of build it from there and just, build more steam. But I don't know. I feel like they could get more out of Becky and Bianca, but just kind of end it for now and then, kind of revisit it later.
Yeah. The thing is, though, when you look at Bianca Belair and Charlotte, well, I would love to see that. Maybe they're looking at that for WrestleMania, and you got to keep them separated for the next several months. I could see Bianca Belair versus Charlotte. I would love to see that, right? Like a one-on-one, no third person involved. So Bianca versus Charlotte. And if she does go to Raw, fine, but somehow, some way they avoid each other until Rumble season. It's not that hard to do. You got only a few pay-per-views left, which is actually really crazy, right? Like, from October to December is really all the pay-per-views you have left. So you could do it. And I would love to see Bianca versus Charlotte. And that is easily WrestleMania worthy. So, yeah, I mean, the draft is going to throw a wrench in all this, and everything we're saying right now could just be thrown out the window based on who goes where. I think that there are some certain footholds, certain foundational pieces of SmackDown that are not going anywhere, and I really don't believe Roman Reigns is going to Raw. I know some people have talked about that. I do not believe that Roman Reigns is going to Raw because I think Fox is going to fight too hard to keep him. He has been, and I like thinking of SmackDown and thinking of Roman Reigns. And that's what I did with The Rock when The Rock was, and I know he coined the term SmackDown.
Yeah,
like when you think of a brand, you think of that a certain superstar. That's how you know that you have you've really made it with that star, that you've really solidified that brand as a player. And to me, Roman Reigns is now SmackDown. Like his identity is SmackDown. That's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that SmackDown's more important than him. He's just such an important part. He's a massive pillar of SmackDown and has been one of the biggest reasons SmackDown has been so damn good over the last 13 months with him turning heel last August. And so I don't think that they're going to want to change that. That formula is too magical. You don't want to mess with it. Fox executives, I'm sure, are actually, and I'm not talking about the sandbox, the playground of war room that they made up a couple of years ago. I'm not talking about, sitting there and faking like who's who and why you're cheering, that they got Dolph Ziggler. I remember that. They're like freaking out over like the most ridiculous names, no, but in real life, behind closed doors, they're probably like, no, like we really do want to keep these individuals on the show. So there's probably truly a real draft going on. I mean, I'm sure while this is playing out on TV, I'm sure USA Network executives and Fox executives are saying, hey, like we'd love to get these guys and gals on our show. They seem to be needle movers. They seem to be the most active on social media, whatever metrics they use to gauge who's a big player and who's not. So while we say the draft isn't real, there's a real draft going on backstage. Like people don't see that, but there is. So I think Roman Reigns isn't going anywhere. I don't know where I came up with that, but there it is.
Well, yeah. And, while people say that, Fox doesn't necessarily specifically pick who goes where. And like you said, they have a huge say because they spent $1 billion on this show. Like they're going to want to have some say and control on what happens on that show. So yeah, like it makes more sense than not to keep him on SmackDown. And I don't know, no disrespect to anyone else on Raw, but I don't know who would even be like a viable trade for a Roman, like a Big E, like a Bobby Lashley. Like Big E's the champion now. Like I'm a big fan of both of those guys, but Roman's on a different level than anyone right now. It's just you can't remove him from SmackDown. He's got to stay.
Yeah. No, do not move him. Like you said too, Fox does have the more lucrative deal, so maybe more money is also the factor of while USA would love to have him, and it's a 3-hour show and they have more seats to fill. I think that Roman Reigns on SmackDown makes much more sense. He has just absolutely brought up that brand, while not solely by himself, and has had some great dancing partners. Obviously, I'm not putting all the credit on him, but he's a major part of what has been so enjoyable about SmackDown. On top of the fact that it's 2 hours, not 3. 3 is infinitely worse. And that kind of thing. So, all right, well, let's continue on. So we're both picking Becky Lynch to retain the SmackDown Women's Championship by some kind of, it's not going to be straight up. She's not going to beat Bianca straight up. It's going to be something that happens where she takes advantage, foreign object, what have you. But now we get to the Universal Championship match. Roman Reigns versus the Demon Finn Balor. This one's a little more interesting, but this is a Extreme Rules match. There are no rules in this one, which leaves the door open for certain things to happen if they want to happen, that I think we all know who we're referencing. But go ahead, Ashley. I'm going to let you take it.
Yeah, again, this was the other one that I was really torn about also, because while I feel like it should be obvious that Reigns retains here, something about it being the Demon and having it being Extreme Rules just really kind of throws like a wrench into that, just being an automatic thing for me. So I don't know. It's this one's really tough. I could see Finn winning it in like a short reign, just kind of like for the shock factor. But then again, they did just do that with Big E, so they kind of may feel like they don't necessarily need to. So while I would think it's cool to see Finn be champion, and I think he kind of deserves it. I don't think it's going to happen right now. Mainly because they've already advertised, too, that Crown Jewel is going to be next month, I believe, in October. And I'm pretty sure that they advertised that was a title match. So I don't see that match really happening without it being for the title, because that's pretty much the only reason Brock came back. And that's the only reason why Brock competes, is for title matches, unless they take the story a completely different route, which they could, with Heyman and everything. I don't know, because part of me was going to say, and I could see Brock making an appearance here and costing Reigns the title, and then it just being a grudge match then, but that wouldn't make sense either, because why would, Brock wants to be the champion again. So, yeah, long story short, I guess I'm going to stick with Reigns being champion and retaining here, but I wouldn't be completely shocked if they put it on Finn here really quick.
This one to me, I see the argument for Finn Balor winning. It would be a shock. People would be like, oh my God, Roman lost the belt, and he has held it for 380 days, whatever it's been, one of the longest runs. But are they really going to have Finn Balor be the one? No disrespect to Finn. Great competitor. I love how he's reinvented himself since NXT. It's like he's a man versus a boy now. It's just, yeah. I love it. I love it. That he's a main event player any day of the week. No question. But this is Roman Reigns we're talking about. This is the longest, most important run, arguably, of his career. And do they really want Finn Balor in just a shock and awe, kind of superficial reason to do it, to end Roman Reigns' run? I don't think so. Even if it's at the hands of Brock Lesnar, like if Brock Lesnar's the reason that Roman loses, I still don't want it to happen. And the reason I don't is because, and I don't mean disrespect, it's going to sound disrespectful, but it's not. Finn Balor's not a big enough star at the level of Roman Reigns to take the belt off him right now. While I don't know if Brock's going to be the one to do it, that's a conversation for next month. I just don't think Finn Balor, even the Demon, is big enough to defeat Roman Reigns. I mean, we had John Cena, arguably one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time, come back. Couldn't get the job done. Kevin Owens tried like 500 times. Couldn't get it done. Edge, a couple of times. Couldn't get it done. And all of those guys outside of Kevin Owens are bigger stars than Finn Balor. And yes, the Demon is undefeated on the main roster, but I still think everything gets sacrificed at the altar of Roman Reigns right now. There is nothing that is too holier than thou that cannot be sacrificed for Roman Reigns. And I think WWE understands and recognizes that they're onto something special. So while I know people are going to be pissed off that they have Finn Balor lose here, even as the Demon and no longer is undefeated, they're probably thinking it serves a higher purpose. And that purpose is to get Roman Reigns to an incredibly over level. He's already there, but to just cement it. And I know people are going to be angry at it, and that's to be expected. But I don't think that Finn Balor is the one to do it here, just for a simple shock and awe. I think that you're going to have Roman Reigns retain here, probably fairly. I think it's going to be fair. I know Brock Lesnar's going to be there. In what capacity, I don't know. Or when he's going to come out, probably at the end of the match, F5 Roman, after he retains the title, and then just stand there and holding up the Universal Championship is probably my guess. So I don't think he'll be a factor during the match. That's my thought with Brock. But he'll be there for sure. I just, I don't think that this match with Brock and Roman could possibly be not for the Universal Championship, because like you said, Brock stated when he came back, he's here for the Universal Championship. He didn't say he had beef with Roman Reigns, and if you have the title or not, I don't care. I just want to, beat your ass. He came for the Universal Championship. That was his mission. So you're not going to cancel the match because Roman doesn't have the belt now. You can't go back on it, which tells you that it's a foregone conclusion that Roman Reigns is going to retain. I think that it's a 99% chance that Roman Reigns retains here, with an F5 from Brock leading right to the Crown Jewel build-up in Saudi Arabia. Whether you love, hate, or whatever you think of the Crown Jewel pay-per-view, always a controversial one. I think that's a lock for the Universal Championship between Brock and Roman. So sorry, everybody that loves the Demon. It's not happening.
Yeah, and I guess the final thing I'll say on this, for Finn, I don't even think a loss here is really going to hurt him. Like I don't think that even the fact that it's the Demon is going to necessarily hurt either of them necessarily, because it's Roman Reigns, and like you said, like he he has been so well protected this past year plus, and just everything that he's done with his character and just how he's been presented, he's on a different level. So, like you mentioned, all the people who, John Cena, Edge, all the people who have lost to him, like Finn Balor being one of them, most likely after tomorrow night, that's not a bad thing. And I don't think Finn's going to be buried yet. Yeah, of course, he's going to probably move down on the card and face off maybe for the IC title or whatever, but, or maybe he'll move over to Raw and face off with Big E, you know, who knows, but I don't think this is going to be a bad thing when he loses. I'm just going to say when he loses.
And the sad thing for Finn is if Roman Reigns was still that like kind of lukewarm, mixed reaction babyface that was just painful to watch for 6 years, if that was still Roman Reigns right now with the tactical vest and all all that nonsense, I think Finn Balor would actually be Universal Champion because Finn Balor could easily fill that spot and everyone would be just fine and happy. But Roman Reigns, like you said, he's on another level that very few get to. And unfortunately, as great as Finn Balor is, Roman is just a level ahead. And there's just no denying it. So to me, being able to say that Roman Reigns ended the Demon's undefeated streak is more important to WWE than saying, oh, let's do a shock and awe. And then what do you have? Like, well, okay, cool. Finn's champion. Now what? You know, I don't, while it would create a social media outcry and people would be talking about it, oh, it's creating a huge buzz. Okay, what do you do when the buzz is over and people are like, oh, was that worth it? You know, so I think they're thinking long term. I think having the sacrifice of the Demon losing to Roman Reigns, having that notch on his belt and another thing he could say he did is more important than Finn Balor winning. And either way, I'm going to really enjoy this match. Both are excellent in the ring. I have no questions and concerns about the quality of this match. It's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah,
I agree.
Anything else that you think could happen on the pay-per-view that maybe we're missing? Returns? I mean, we just talked about Brock, but anything else? I think maybe we're returned out. Like everybody that we thought was going to return everywhere in every promotion has done so far. Right. You know, except for The Rock. He's like kind of the only one out there that's floating around probably till November-ish. So, I mean, is there anything we're missing that maybe could happen?
Yeah, no. Outside of Brock, which I guess that could be classified as a surprise. Outside of him, I don't really see anyone else. I think it's just going to be just a standard pay-per-view. I think it's going to be pretty solid, even though it's not the standard card that we're normally getting on these type of pay-per-views. But I think it's going to be pretty solid. But yeah, I don't really see I don't see like a Sasha Banks returning here or anything like that. But I think it's going to be a good match, or I'm sorry, a good card. But maybe a Brock, but I'm not even completely set on that. Like you mentioned, maybe he can return after the match, but I don't know. Do you think that's kind of too predictable at this point, or do you think that, you know, even though it may be predictable, it'll still be a cool moment, which it would be?
Yeah, I think it would be, and I think that's how Vince wants to go off the air, is in a big way.
Yeah.
So, especially leading to Saudi Arabia, which for whatever reason they probably get WrestleMania money to go there. I mean, the zeros that Saudi Arabia and the Prince pay WWE must be incredible. I mean, hell, it brought Shawn Michaels out of retirement, and we won't talk about that. So, yeah, I think that they want to end this in a big way. And what bigger way than after the fans being pissed that Roman is still champion to send them home happy with an F5 from Brock Lesnar standing there raising the championship. Yes, it's predictable, but I think it's the right thing to do. You keep Roman as champion, you send the fans home happy, and it's a lasting image that you have going off the air. I mean, I think it's fine, and I think that's how it's going to go down. Brock could interfere in the match, but why would he interfere in the match to help out either guy? I mean, what does he care?
Right.
You know, if he wants the Universal Championship, to me, it doesn't make sense he would be interfering in the match. So, yeah, I mean, I outside of that, yeah, Sasha Banks, who is, I mean, I honestly don't know the reason why she was out. There's been rumors of COVID and personal issues and injuries, and I honestly don't know the reason Sasha's out. You know, she seems to kind of come and go. She's on the Keith Lee schedule, apparently. Keith Lee also is just MIA. I know that he sent out an 8-minute video or something about the reason he was out, and he explained it from January through summer, and then he's gone again. And it's like, what the hell is going on? And I hope everything's okay with him. You know, I know he mentioned heart issues and things like that, which maybe they're not resolved. Who knows? But I don't expect Sasha Banks here probably unless whatever these issues are with her are resolved. Do you think so? You don't believe that Sasha Banks is going to come back on the pay-per-view is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, no. I think she'll make an appearance on a SmackDown, if anything.
All right. Well, very good. Ashley, very fun as always. Before you go, social media. I know you got your Twitter, and let everyone know what that is.
Yeah, it is at ASHMANNS.
Awesome. And I can say it for everybody that lives north of probably Virginia, when it starts to become around this time of year, we want to just extend one group middle finger to Florida and in jealousy of the warm weather you guys have just year round and palm trees all the time. You just look out your window and there they are. And
yes,
I have
right outside.
I've got leaves falling and pine trees and so damn. But hey, I will be there. I was saying to Ashley, I'll be there just for a few days down in March. So that'll be just at the end of winter when I'm just sick and tired of it. I'll be able to pretend that I also am enjoying that warm weather. So Ashley, thanks so much for joining me. And we will be chatting very soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, man. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Bye.